The Chinese version of Clash Royale is weirder than you think. There are different chests, game modes, magic items, even currencies. I mean, there's a lot to discuss, and I've been wanting to make this video for a while, but it just seems like the game keeps changing. They've been removing things, adding things. So the list of things I wanted to look at just kept evolving. But to understand a lot of these changes, I first wanted to answer one simple question that a lot of us are wondering. Why? Well, it all started in 2021. Chinese officials had to put a halt on game publishing due to new strict laws for mobile gaming and esports. During this time, Tencent, the majority owner of Supercell, could not update any of their games in China, and that of course included all Supercell games there. To abide by these new laws, the only solution was to have China-specific versions of the games that they can modify that wouldn't impact the rest of the world. And on March 16th, 2022, this will become a reality. Clash Royale entered what seemed like a regularly scheduled maintenance break, but this one was much longer than usual due to them needing to migrate all players in China from the global servers into their own. But not only was it a server split, the game was now on a brand new game client, which meant it was its own version of Clash Royale. From here on out, game updates, new features, and seasons would have to be added separately to this version, which wouldn't happen immediately, but also now they could add different features, including ones that wouldn't have been received well in Western countries. The first thing I wanted to look at is the monetization in this game. This is not going to be in any specific order. I'm just going to be breaking down the various ways you can spend money in this version, which is a lot. Probably the most controversial feature is the new gacha system. When you go to the shop tab, right off the bat, there is a lot going on here. Tons of different tabs, special offers, items, cards, and currencies. The new chest system is located in the cards tab, and there are 5 different subsections. Those represent common, rare, epic, legendary, and wild. That last one might be a little different, but I'm not entirely sure. The translation is a little funny. In each of those tabs, you'll find a chest that can be opened with special keys that can only open the rarity they're for. These keys, of course, cost real money, and there are tons and tons of offers for these keys in the shop. Some are free, but it's just very overwhelming how many of them there are. Luckily, they can also be found in in-game events like challenges. Next to the chest, it displays what you could pull from that chest, and these may seem like a good bang for your buck, but the drop rates for the cards in these chests are very low. There are 3 zeros in that number. More often than not, you're getting a couple commons, rares, and epics in all of the chests. The rarity doesn't matter, you're going to be pulling anything but what it says most of the time. It's pretty apparent that this was designed to get you to spend as much money as possible, trying to chase those 20x legendary packs that you'll probably not get. This was taken to the extreme, and it's sad to see the game in this state. It does appear there is a limit to how many of these keys you can use per day, but it's so high there might as well not even be one. It's only there to comply with some regulations there. You can also hold thousands of these keys for each rarity. It seems they want this new system to be the main way to progress in this version of the game. They want you to have tons of keys and open a lot of chests. This version also has the regular pass Royale we're all familiar with, but it took them a while to have it all updated. For example, not too long ago, there was a pass with old skins and non-exclusive emotes. This was before their major 2023 update, so it seems they were scrapping old assets together to make some season out of something, at least. Eventually, they did get updated seasons along with the new Pass Royale changes, but they also got another kind of pass that is entirely separate from Pass Royale. This is a special pass, and as far as I've read with translations and whatnot, it seems to be exclusive for those who have at least one card below level 13. So basically, non-max players. You progress through this pass with a new ticket currency, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Each tier contains just enough cards and gold for you to upgrade those cards shown in the tier. So essentially, each tier is a bundle deal for pretty much every card you don't have maxed. It does appear to have some free tiers, but those can only be accessed once you unlock the previous tiers that cost tickets, so it's not really free. On paper, it doesn't sound like a terrible deal. Max all of your cards with tickets. Simple enough, right? So how do you get these tickets? Well, You might have already guessed, but it's with real money. In fact, these tickets are gems, basically. In the shop, you'll find a tab for these tickets, and to buy gems, you need to have some tickets. The tickets are essentially a middleman, and it was most likely made this way to dodge certain laws around purchasing in-game currencies and gambling. Unfortunately, this just complicates the process, and they couldn't even make the packs equal the amount of gems. So if you buy a 640 ticket pack, you cannot buy the equivalent in gems because you'd be short 40 tickets. It is truly very greedy of them to do that, but sadly it seems Tencent gets away with a lot more in China. Clash Royale has turned into Tencent's playground over there, and unfortunately there's nothing the players can do about it. The gameplay of this version is largely the same, especially as of recently. You have all the same cards, you make a deck, and you battle against other players in various modes. What makes Clash Royale is still present in this version. However, there have been some major changes in the past. Let's start with a feature that was recently removed, a ladder where you can ban cards. Yeah. You heard that right. There was no Path of Legends or the updated Trophy Road. This is what they had. It happened around the summer of 2023. You would get one of those tutorial pop-ups if you reached 5,000 trophies, and then it explained the new ladder system. You got to pick a card to ban, then make 2 decks, one main deck and one alternative. None of those decks could have the same cards, and each deck had to contain 5 cards at level 11 or higher. There was even a counter at the bottom of the deck that checked to see if you met those requirements. After all of that, you could go into a match, and if you or your opponent happened to have one of those banned cards in your main deck, your deck would get swapped with the alternative one. A little confusing, but I guess it makes sense. The rest of the match was basically normal Clash Royale with a few changes which we'll get into in a second. The Trophy Road track was also different. You progressed through these leagues that looked entirely different, represented by Roman numerals. You won these stars from battle, and that is the way you progress through the leagues above 5,000. Each of those leagues have an only chest and gold to offer, no cards or anything else. Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that there was no keys up there. It seems it wasn't exactly popular though, as this was short-lived, or perhaps it was just a distraction from the lack of updates and was supposed to be temporary all along. Just a couple months later, the new Path of Legends and Trophy Road was introduced. Yeah, they had barely just gotten this over a year late. But even those had their changes. Trophy Road had no trophies. Instead, you had those stars we previously mentioned. They worked the exact same way. You progressed through the Trophy Road with the stars. Honestly, this is one of the only features that made more sense, which is why I'm surprised that it seems they have added the trophies back. Yeah, this is what I meant earlier by the game changing all of the time. One season you have one feature, and the next it's entirely different or completely gone. As for the Path of Legends, apparently when it was first added, there was no level cap, making it very unfair. However, I didn't find any gameplay of that, and in recent footage, it does look like there is a cap now. Another interesting difference in that version that also got removed recently was increased stats for everything. This seems to have been around the same time they had that ban mode in ladder. In one clip, I noticed the rocket did over 3,000 damage and almost 800 to the towers, much higher than a max rocket in the global version. This was for every card in the game, and I thought this was pretty wild, until I noticed that the King and Princess towers also had almost double the HP. I'm not entirely sure what the point of this was, if towers had more HP and do more damage, but also cards wouldn't matches feel the exact same, just different numbers. I don't know, not like it matters anyway, because that all vanished in the Path of Legends update, which brought the game up to speed with the rest of the world. But as far as I've seen, much of the monetization we discussed earlier has remained in the game, and local players are not happy with it. Many of the reviews in China complain of how terrible the matchmaking has been ever since these servers switched, which is most likely due to the massive decline in the player base. Having your own version in just one country is bound to have some effect on matchmaking. But most importantly, they also seem to hate the monetization, many expressing that you need to spend money to have fair matchups. Scrolling through the reviews in the Chinese Tencent App Store reminded me of the times when players in the rest of the world turned against Supercell for various reasons, but at least then Supercell was listening and responding to the community, whereas players in these reviews will sadly be left unread by the very company responsible for the changes. Aside from new monetization methods and gameplay changes, there are also a handful of differences that are smaller or don't really fit in any other categories. For example, after maintenance breaks, it seems they do get compensation in the form of keys, gold, or whatever they feel like giving away, I guess. You can buy up to 6 emotes, pretty interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if this made it into the global version one day. One of the most known changes is the poison spell, which is known as the damage potion here. The card artwork has been changed to green, and it also appears green in the game. This is because there's something weird about the color red in China. I won't get into that right now, but swapping the color red for something else is pretty common in games there. Another example of this is the overtime. The box with the timer turns blue, and usually the screen flashes red for overtime. Well, here it flashes blue. There are some extra settings related to privacy. It seems you can toggle your profile visibility, opt in or out of the leaderboard, and also toggle whether players can spectate you. You cannot change the in-game language, it's locked to Chinese. And finally, for the settings, there is no API token because there is no API access. Basically, that means websites that can track your stats or chess cycle do not work there. The support button that usually leads to Supercell's support leads to Tencent in this version. And lastly, there are no local leaderboards. This one is pretty obvious. I mean, the game is intended to be played only in China, so there is no point in having a global or local leaderboards. It's all just one leaderboard. After concluding my research on this topic, I realized Clash Royale could be way worse. At least in the global version, you can still be a free-to-play player without feeling like you're at a huge disadvantage. A lot of the changes in this version were purely based on money and were incredibly unnecessary, and it's pretty unfortunate for the players there. But Clash Royale isn't the only Supercell game facing these issues in China, so perhaps in my next investigation or whatever this video is, I can take a look at that. With that being said though, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a gaming outs. Peace!